COVID quarantine, we're back in our office in Sibeta, which is a circular breeding ground. It's a home to us, and it's at the most inspirational place possible for events, workshops, meetings. So just know that we're open for business here. If you're interested, contact us and we will guide you through. We, as Holland Circular Hotspot, who are we? We like to make circular economy happen at the international level. We present Dutch circular solutions to global challenges, best practices from companies spread out over various market segments. We share the insights and tools from knowledge institutes, and we share the lessons learned the hard way from governments, both national and local. And we hope that by accelerating circular economy over the globe, we can contribute to the societal goals, not as a cost, but as a business model. And of course, the power is that there is a team behind Holland Circular Hotspot. Now you see me, but this is all a collaborative effort. Behind the screens, you have Diana and Stephanie answering the questions in the chat, doing the web communication. Ruben will be your panel moderator today. Anka and Elena make the chat going as smooth as possible. And supporting us very much from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency are Claire and Mieke will be a speaker as well. Now we have a fascinating program. You know what they say, textile will be the new plastics. It's hot everywhere. It's an item everywhere in the world. And looking at the participants, I think that's true. We'll start with an introduction of our Netherlands Embassy in Paris. To set the scene, we'll present the highlights of an RVO report on innovation and sustainability in French fashion tech. And then we move on to the Dutch value chain, textile value chain with challenges and capabilities. And that will be a duo presentation by Renstab and Mieke Evers. Then we will, let's say, confront, let's say, the offer and demands, the challenges and barriers, coalitions in a panel. And finally, we will close up. So without much further ado, I would like to give the floor to Nico Schieterkatte, Head of the Economic Section, Embassy of the Kingdom in the Netherlands, for the introduction. Nico, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me, at least also see me? Not seeing me?
We can see you on the screen, Nico.
Yes? Okay. Yes, I see a yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Freek, for your introduction. I am delighted that Holland Circular Hotspots launched this initiative for this webinar and is hosting this webinar. It was a great partnership also to do this together. Now, circularity is very much in fashion right now, and I think it's the appropriate terminology to use for this particular webinar. I would like to thank you all for being here. Today we have three distinguished speakers from France and the Netherlands, whom I would like to welcome in particular. The fact that you are here to share your expertise with this audience is another step towards ever more fruitful collaboration. Now, we are experiencing a health crisis, which also puts more focus on the climate challenges we are facing. And yes, there are already clear signs that this lockdown period we've been going through so far has made us even more aware of the fundamental changes, societal, industrial, and also personal, that are needed to move away from a linear system to a more circular economy. Our governments in the Netherlands and in France focus on a green recovery strategy, also outlined in the European Green Deal Anti-Circular Economy Action Plan. Now, we are all aware of the sustainability and footprint challenges in the fashion sector. The textiles industry is a top priority value chain that needs to speed up circular transition. At the same time, it is my strong conviction that ecology and economy go hand in hand. In order to recover from the crisis, fashion companies will have to become more sustainable and circular to adapt to changing consumer demands and comply with upcoming regulations. At the same time, cutting-edge research in, for instance, new materials and innovative circular business models show that we're moving forward and making progress. At the Embassy of the Netherlands in France, we are very committed to this transition to a circular fashion system through policy dialogues, supporting research and business development, and so on. Did you know that any Dutch entrepreneur or researcher can contact us with questions about the French fashion sector? We count on an extensive network of French contacts and strategic partners who can make a difference. We also follow the latest news and developments in the sector. So if you're looking for science, technology, innovation partner, business, investments, or sector information or relevant events, our team can help you out. For example, a very important upcoming event is the Erasmus Descartes Conference, our yearly Franco-Dutch conference, which will be organized by us in the Lille region on the 20th of November. And if the health situation does not allow for an offline event, we will move it online, or maybe a combination of both. Why not? The topic will be sustainable fashion, sustainable materials. This is a great opportunity to hear experts from both countries discuss the latest innovations and to expand your own network. In parallel, we will be organizing an innovation mission related to this topic to Paris and Lille from the 18th to the 20th of November, focusing on research institutes, startups, and SMEs. More information will shortly be available online, but also at any time, please do not hesitate to contact us. Moreover, we do not only have an embassy in Paris, but also the Atelier Néerlandais, which is a great meeting place and a platform for the Dutch creative sector in Paris. We also have 2 regional offices, our Netherlands business support offices in Nantes and Lyon. Now, France is a big country with different relevant fashion clusters. Our next speaker, French fashion expert Alice Gras, whom I appreciate enormously, will go into the details about the different clusters, developments, and opportunities here in France. So let me give the virtual floor to Alice, and let me thank you for your attention, and please do not hesitate to contact us at the embassy if you're looking forward to expand your business or research opportunities in France. And obviously, I will be available for further questions during the panel discussion as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Nico, for your words of introduction. And as you already said, we would like to give the floor to Alice Gras to the deepening session. And we're dying to hear what you're having to tell us. Ali, the floor is yours. Please share.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Alice.
Perfect. So I will not activate my camera because I don't think my network is perfect. And I want to share instance slides with you about the presentation to make it clear. So I hope it will work properly. So let's share my screen with you.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, nice. I try to put it, the diaporama. Okay, is that fine?
That's fine.
Okay, so
yes, we see your
perfect.
Good luck.
So yeah, thank you. So innovation and sustainability in French fashion tech opportunities is the title of a study conducted since November 2018 under the direction of the embassy. And the purpose of this study is to provide a global view on the fashion tech ground in France to facilitate the collaborations among Dutch and French players for the benefits of the sustainable practices within the meaning of the SDGs. So I'm Alice, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm the CEO of Holland Circular, and I'm a consultant, and I have written this study with Claire Elio. She's a designer, researcher, and specialized in smart textiles. And we are both members of La Fashion Tech Association, which provide us a good view on the fashion tech ground in France. So the study is divided in 5 parts. So the first one is focusing on the convergence of ecological and economical sustainability in fashion. The second one is about the French fashion innovation landscape, describing the different layers of players. Then the third part is dedicated to fashion and scientific research. And the fourth on the new technologies to innovate with a different example. And finally, the last part is dedicated to the opportunity for strategic cooperation in sustainable fashion tech among our both countries. So how the digital revolution has disrupted the French fashion industry and response digital and bring to the fashion industry related unbearable problems. Our study is focused on. Today we will be on the second one. So quickly about what we mean by fashion tech. So actually, fashion tech defined as any innovation which can find application in fashion sectors. The French fashion tech movement has started with the first wearables and smart textiles, and now technological innovations adapted to fashion are assimilated to the fashion tech movement, including innovation for the retail part. So quickly, here are the main dynamic innovative sectors with application in fashion that we have listed in the study. So the first one is the 3D printing, and this creates new shape for the use of new composite materials, the biofabrication, immersive technologies, virtual fitting and sizing, artificial intelligence, CAD 3D, blockchain, robotics, wearables. And the question is how those innovations can address the ecological issues fashion is facing. So what are those problems? They are mostly pollution, pressure on raw materials, and waste. And actually the fashion players realize in France that they are facing a crisis as well as the citizens. So the problems mentioned before are related to the consuming habits with the washing frequency, fast fashion habits, the end of life management. It is also related to the manufacturing process with pesticides, chemistry, etc., and the logistics, transportation, stock management, burns of unsold products. It is also, as Nico just said, related to the pressure on raw materials, and this is related to the choice we make to conceive, of course, the clothes and fabrics. And it is also the waste is also related, of course, to the volume-based business model. So the question is how the players will address those problems. And many different players are currently trying to find new solutions. And they also try to find solutions in the fashion tech sector. So French fashion players and consumers are all oriented toward finding solutions through different kind of actions, not automatically through the high tech, but also reconnecting with local fibers and small quantities models. So we can say that in France, we are in a period of experimentation. So the first part of the report is mostly a presentation of the organizations that are leading change toward more ecological fashion. So what is interesting is that so we just identified several causes of the problems, pollution problems of the fashion sectors. And what is interesting is how fashion tech is addressing or looking to address those problems. And as Nico has mentioned, it is true that as soon as the economic argument is on the side of the most polluting systems, it seems very difficult to operate mass shifts. And one thing fashion tech is contributing is to change the idea of a systematic opposition among both economical and ecological objectives. For instance, famous players such as Stella McCartney are seeking solutions into fashion tech ecosystem to improve the environmental footprints. And once globally, once the excitement for digital startup in itself passed, we can observe a reorientation of innovation toward achieving the SDGs. Yeah, many fashion tech pioneers are reorienting their positioning to address the issues, ecological issues. So regarding the consuming habits, turnover and waste, I can quote several examples of players involved, but you will find many examples in the study itself. First, all the startups looking to provide more transparency on the value chain for both brands, but also final consumers. I can quote Ariani, CFM, Honest, and Transparency. All are startups using the blockchain technologies. Then you have all about on-demand manufacturing and on-demand nature measure. Here again, you have plenty of examples in the study, but I can quote Taking for dynamic short circuit production, but also Lectra, which is a very big company in France and very important, made 4.0 customization software. You have also many sizing startups like Fitter, Sizomatic, Natec, which is a new made-to-measure automatized software. And you have a lot of brands as well providing, using algorithms to provide made-to-measure fashion on demand, such as Lolo Paris for lingerie. You have also researchers addressing those problems, and they are also listed in the study. I can quote Elisabeth Jaillot, and of course also not in tech, but brands that are proposing slow fashion models such as Loom, which is pretty known in France. We can also quote the action of the vintage marketplace, which are currently becoming really huge. And about this market of the second-hand clothing is said to have doubled since 2010. And 2018, according to the IFM Observatory. Then you have a new app encouraging to buy less and better, such as Cliff Fashion. And so mostly for those problems, the new tech involved are blockchain tech, sizing tech, sensor AI, algorithm, robotics, and all are described in the study. Regarding the materials, we can quote the bring back to local fibers players, let's say, and especially the association Lin et Chanvre Bio, but also Herbix Creation, which is currently conducting a huge work about hemp fiber, and also Sericine Prodways Group, which is a very important 3D printing company in France, owned by the Groupe Gorgé, which provides new 3D printers that allow to print new recyclable materials. Then about the biofabrication, you have different startups acting on that part as well, but I would say much less in France than in the Netherlands. But I can quote Atelier Symbiosis, Indio, and PD for dyeing with bacteria. The research sector is of course very active on those topics, with possible application in the textile industry. I can quote Gemtex, which is a very important laboratory for composites. Projects like cleaning textiles. Then you have also institutions like IFTH with the project Carefield or le CETI, Centre Européen des Textiles Innovants, that work on a new way to recycle yarns. And so for this issue, mostly the technology used are microbiology, biotech, also robotics and AI. Then for the design process.
Mind the time,
Yeah.
please. We're going way over time and we have more speakers. It's
Yeah.
extremely interesting, but let's try to be...
I can't see the hours while speaking, sorry. But just to conclude, as you can see, in fashion tech, you can find many solutions to address the problem of the fashion sectors. And we hope that we have listed most of them in the study, but of course, new solutions are emerging currently at the moment we are talking. And at the end of the study, you will find many opportunities for Dutch players to collaborate with the startups and the actors listed in the study. And there are plenty of strategies that you can adopt to combine your competences with the French fashion players working on those issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice. Much appreciated. We heard you speaking about the French perspective, challenges, multi-stakeholder nature of the game, materials, design, logistics, transparency, and you refer to actual examples on the French market. So that's very interesting. Looking forward to the panel. But to have a really good panel, we have to see the other perspectives come from the Netherlands. And for that, we have two speakers, Rens Stap and Mieke Evers. And I would like to start with Rens. Rens, can you take the floor, please?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I will share my screen too. I hope that I'm visible and that you can hear me. Is my presentation visible?
The presentation is not yet visible. Alice has to stop sharing her screen and you can come in. Yeah.
It is there?
Not yet. Work in progress.
I try to... Sorry, I can't find how to exit the sharing of the screen.
Well, move your mouse to the share screen options and you will probably find it. And now Rens is there. Okay, Rens, the floor is yours. We're really curious.
Okay, well, again, thank you for having me and welcome everybody. We will have two short presentations, one from me, one from Mieke. I will go into the things that are happening in a wider, more policy perspective going on in the circular textiles here in Holland. And after that, Mieke will showcase some special projects. I work with Modint, the Association of the Dutch Clothing and Textiles Manufacturers, based in Zeist near Utrecht, for a lot of years. And the last few years, I'm especially working on innovation projects and research projects, together with the industry and together with the Knowledge Center, mainly the Universities of Applied Sciences. One of my colleagues here in the meeting is Peter Koppert. He is our specialist in circular textiles, and he saw different regional initiatives in circular textiles coming up in Holland, and he decided to cluster them into what he called the Dutch Circular Textile Valley, which has been funded now and is really taking off. And so that's the first bigger project that I would like to highlight. The second is a plan which is now going through Parliament, and that's called the Policy Plan for Circular Textiles 2020-2025, and it will stretch for more years. It's made up by the Ministry of Infrastructure and Environment. After that, we as an association with a fellow association in retail made our own plan and offered that to the ministry. And I think in the future, the coming years, this policy plan will evolve into a extended producer responsibility program, but that has all that needs all to come in place in the coming years. Personally, I work with 4 universities of applied sciences a lot: ARTES, TMO, Saxion, and the Amsterdam School, Amphi. We try to cluster research and try to connect the research at these knowledge institutions with the industry and connect them to research programs in Holland. So we've made up a strategic research agenda, and this comes along very, very well with what you've just heard in France. There are the same topics. And I think that's a nice thing, you know, whether you talk to people in France or in Sweden, England, Belgium, or Germany, you know, we know them all, the specialists in textiles and in clothing research. We all work on the same topics, I feel. So that's very nice. We can do this under what they call the top sector policy in Holland. The creative industry is a top sector. So there is funding from an organization called ClickNL. And what's very nice for companies interested in circularity is that they can also join the CIRCO tracks from ClickNL. So their companies are, you have in company or companies are together trying to find out what strategies in circularity they can use in the next coming years. Then let's put it in an even larger context. You might have all heard about the agreement on sustainable clothing and textiles. That has been implemented by the Social Economic Board in Holland, signed by 80 companies. And that's where you can see that on the bottom line, the social component and the environmental components on sustainability and circularity come together. And we would love to see all these programs that you see on this page connected into what we call the Textiles Pact, because then we find that we really have influence, that we will really have an impact. And then we want to go further. There are more universities than the Universities of Applied Sciences that I already mentioned. The Word University of Wageningen is building a program on circular materials. The Haagse Hogeschool is becoming active. We have the technical universities of Eindhoven and Delft. So we're expanding our field and trying to connect all these programs, and then also connect them to the policies of the governments, like the regional programs, perspective programs. They're called smart industry programs. Well, you know all these beautiful words, but we hope to get really some things going there. But then most important, and that's why we were happy to join this seminar and this webinar, is of course the European insights. We've seen the Green Deal. Modent is becoming member of Euratex again. You probably know ETP, the European program there. The schools of applied sciences have through NetVas, with what it's an organization of these schools. Yeah. They have a chair at ETP. You have the Interreg program. We have an Interreg program on circular workwear here in Holland. So we really feel that from Holland, we need to expand our activities and connect them with the European activities. And, well, that's why I really highlighted the word Europe in this presentation. Then, to conclude, what are circular textiles? Well, we don't know. We need a lot of more facts, more research, more definitions. So we are very glad that on June 25, we can present the Dutch Technical Advice, as it's called, from NEN, the Dutch Normalization Institute, and we worked with them on it. which is a presentation of the definition of circular textiles. And so if you can join that, we would be very delighted to see you there. It's powered by ClickNL. Ultimately, the money comes from RVO, the organization where Mieke Evers works. So maybe that's a nice
yes
to her presentation. Thank you very much.
Can I now share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Do you now see my screen?
Yes, you have to click on the right presentation and then we're...
Yeah, so my my boyfriend took my laptop this morning, so I have to use the iPad, so I cannot use the full screen. I'm sorry for that. But can you all see now the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay, great. Okay, hi everyone. First of all, thank you all for having me. My name is Mieke and I work for the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. For those who are not familiar with RVO in general, the Netherlands Enterprise Agency is a government agency that supports entrepreneurs, NGOs, knowledge institutes and organizations to do business both national as well as international. So currently I'm working on a brochure about circular textile chain and best practices for Holland Circular Hotspot. I will share some of my insights on the challenges in the textile industry and share some great examples of Dutch circular textile frontrunners, especially for the non-Dutchies among us. So, well, you are of course all aware that the COVID-19 pandemic has shaken up both the world and shows that all our economies are interconnected. For the textile industry, due to the lockdowns, this crisis resulted in a massive order cancellations, overstock, and people ending up unemployed. It showed that the companies and people working at the beginning of the supply chain are the ones most affected and cannot rely on a support system like we do in the Netherlands. So this crisis also shows the rigidness of the textile industry, which is not resilient and still based on a traditional supply chain and traditional sales business model. So you all know this figure, I think. The COVID-19 makes us more aware that we need to transform from a linear into a circular textile supply chain. This figure shows the textile, the circular value chain. And I would like to show some examples of Dutch circular frontrunners. I selected 5 of them, and I will tell you more about that. These are all the examples. And these are the 5 that I would like to tell you a little bit more about. The first one I selected is a truly circular fashion company with a closed loop supply chain. Loop Alive controls the entire supply chain from raw materials to the final sales. Their garments are made from discarded textiles and selected by color, produced locally without any water or chemicals. They also apply crowdfunding before they start producing a garment, so they won't end up with a overstock. So this is a great example. The second example is the Fabricant. I came across this company through a webinar from Fashion for Good. I would recommend to watch that webinar, which is about taking fashion online on May 12th. So you can watch that back. The Fabricant is based in Amsterdam and known as the Digital Fashion House. This company uses a software that can design and simulate new 3D garments without the need to sew different samples or organize fashion shoots. Everything can be done virtual. So I would all advise you to have a look at this company. The third example, I also find a very nice company that is based in Groningen. And this company combines both upcycling as well as social entrepreneurship. So the idea is that people that own a shirt and no longer wear it, they send it to Van Hully. And Van Hully, they have women that have a disadvantage to the labor market. They work for them and they sew these shirts into very nice underwear. And on top of that, these women have the chance to get an education, ROC, to have a diploma so that they have more chances on the labor market. So I find that a very good example of combining upcycling and social entrepreneurship. And then we have Dutch Spirit. Dutch Spirit is a company that has a circular business model. And I think circular business models are really the way to go. They have a suit as a service. So they produce themselves very nice, sustainable suits for men and women. And you have the opportunity to rent it as a suit. And then if you're done wearing it, someone else can wear the suit, or they recycle it into new garments, or for example, into these scarves that you can see on the right, which are made from KLM corporate old fashion corporate wear. And the last example, which I also find very interesting, is Schijvens. Schijvens is a corporate fashion company doing very well at the moment, because they recently launched a new collection for the Albert Heijn. Albert Heijn is one of the biggest supermarkets in the Netherlands, and they are going to produce 1 million garments for Albert Heijn, so that all their workers wear circular clothing. This clothing is made from previous Albert Heijn clothes, but also added with PET plastics and other organic fibers. So I think the Schijvens is really a good example of that it is possible to scale up circular fashion. And finally, I would like to thank you all for your attention. And I would say, please follow Holland Circular Hotspot on social media for updates. And once our brochure is published in September, we will keep you updated. So thank you all for your attention.
Great, thanks you, Mieke, and thank you, Rens, for your very interesting presentations. We've seen that so many things are happening. There is momentum. As Nico said, that circularity is in fashion, but we don't always know what that means, what it is. I think I really like your, let's say, visualization, Mieke, with the business models and then all the examples. That was great. So yeah, we like to know more about it. We like to confront the various presenters. We want to know if offer can meet demand, if you can talk about challenges and barriers and seek new coalitions. So let's see. Let's go to the panel. And the panel is presented by my dear colleague, Ruben Dubelaar. Ruben, can I give you the floor, please?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Freek. Well, great to digitally see you, everyone. My name is Ruben. I've been actively involved with Holland Circular Hotspot for quite some years already. Great to have this discussion. I would like to remind you that you can ask your questions via the chat box, so please do so. They will be moderated, and hopefully in the end we can answer some of those questions in the Q&A. And also I would like to remind you, please, to mention to whom you want to address the question. Well, it's a bit strange, of course, a panel discussion in the digital format. It might be a bit more challenging to have an interactive discussion with the panelists, but also for the panelists, please feel free to raise your hand and jump in or react if you feel like it and if you are able to. To dive into it, I would like to start also maybe with Alice, our colleague from France. Alice, you've seen the presentation of Mieke and of Rens. My first question to you, because you know the Netherlands quite well, what's the most appealing from your perspective, from the French perspective, if you look to those presentations and developments in the Netherlands and you compare it to France?
My first feeling is that the very interesting example shown in the presentations gives the feeling that Netherlands companies have the certain ability to see the global picture, while maybe French startups are focusing on part of the value chain. Maybe it's you know, it's a personal feeling, but if I observe all the different proposals in France, they are all focusing on one part of the value chain, while most of the startups mentioned in my presentation are not actually coming from the fashion sectors and fashion schools. While in the Netherlands, we have fashion players that tackle, you know, the big pictures to implement 360-degree solution, you know, all-included solution. But yeah, I was particularly interested. I knew it already, but what the fabricant is proposing is really disruptive. The fact of proposing virtual clothes is something that fashion is not doing currently in France. But as fashion is becoming more and more virtual and present on social networks, this approach is particularly, you know, singular, disruptive, innovative, and also brings a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Maybe just pinpointing what you mentioned about you know, startups taking part of the supply chain. So I think there's been a lot of effort, like Rens was mentioning during his presentation about Dutch Circular Textile Valley. Would you support any like developments like that in France if you take that into account? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's for sure. Actually, in France, maybe it wasn't clear, and yeah, it's not really because I didn't have enough to do everything. But France, we are mostly organized in regional clusters, and we have specialties in different clusters. For instance, in Région Rhône-Alpes, we have very interesting center named Ectera, which focus on cool textiles. It's hard for them to fashion sector. I think is really segmented. And the presentation of Mike is showing that there are direct links that we can make to get this especially European call for projects. And so I think this is something we should really consider how we can create connection to markets through call for projects or especially for big players.
Yeah. All right, Alice. Well, thanks. I have to say that the connection is a bit wobbly, but I think we get overall.
I can't hear you correctly.
Thank you for that. Just one more question, because during your presentation, you were finally coming to the end where you would highlight, I think, also some of the opportunities for collaboration, which is mentioned in your report. So I guess people really want to know all the ins and outs, and details have to go into the report. But maybe you can give us a few teasers. What was the outcome, and maybe mention two of the elements that you would think would be relevant also for the audience before we move to the next panelist in about 1 minute. So if you maybe briefly can highlight those elements from your report where you say, okay, that's the opportunity for collaboration between the Netherlands and France.
Okay, so first, there are plenty of combination of the varied technologies process mentioned in the report. and boards to be created. The fashion brands, they are looking for adding new functionalities to their product, more sense, and they are sourcing innovative materials. And I understand that you are really focused on those topics. The brands, they have different strategies that you can, look at. They invest in capital. They also create partnership with technology companies. They create accelerators and awards. Plenty of labs and foundations are also emerging on those topics. And they are, most of the time, they are open to foreign projects. Then you can, they operate as well patent acquisitions like LVMH, which acquired Navia's patent for biopolymer, oyster shell for 3D printing filaments. Then they create also, limited editions to test new technologies like high-tech accessories, for instance. You also have, of course, national public institutions and organizations that are encouraging the ecological transitions through different call for projects. I have mentioned EcoTLC. I encourage you to look at their website because they encourage through price the businesses to innovate in this direction. And it can be a good source of information for collaborations. And you also have many acceleration and incubation programs and call for projects dedicated to fashion that are also open to innovative projects, foreign innovative projects. And obviously, to finish what we just mentioned, the European Union international call for projects. Any kind of business ideas for other sectors which are applicable in fashion and not already on the French market are also opportunities. And all the challenges mentioned in the studies are also as much needs for new business proposals.
All right, Alice, thanks. We might get back to you in a few minutes, but please allow me also to ask a few questions to one of our other presenters, which is Rens. Rens, if I may ask you, and maybe also reflect on what Alice is talking about, and if you take into account the European projects and call for projects, the Green Deal, of course, those are all elements that are quite big. How do you think Dutch entrepreneurs can, well, take a good first step to France, or take it a step further if they have got new innovations? And what can Modint do for entrepreneurs to develop this international business with France?
Well, the reason why we are connecting regions and connecting universities and knowledge and research is that we believe that we need volumes. We need volumes in circular textiles, because otherwise it will be a price matter, or you will keep having all kinds of discussions whether circular textiles will be viable and possible, yes or no. So that's why we really need to expand out of our small country. We have beautiful projects, Saxel, probably the chemical recycling of cotton. It has taken 6 years for some funding, to really expand with this beautiful finding, and so that's why we try to reach out to other countries. We are not so much in exports promotion programs, etc. But what we do is try finding partners for on individual base for companies who say, look, I have a certain interest in a certain research, in a certain line of business, and how can you help? And then we have an enormous network through our fellow associations, through the International Apparel Federation, through, well, everybody, even through our members. We can ask our members, do you know? And then we go, and then we look for good propositions. But
Yeah.
The better the question, the better the answer. That's the problem, of course. General questions are very hard to answer.
Yeah, so you see, in general, you need some regulations to be developed, and well, international collaboration to get more volume, to get the better prices, and maybe it's not so much as a clustered approach as a one-stop shop or a solution, but maybe
or one region becoming circular is not going to work.
No.
Or maybe in a small industry, but not in a worldwide industry as textiles.
Yeah. And so these entrepreneurs, what they do, they just drop an email to Modint, and you take them and help them into France, or how does that work?
Well, first of all, we will answer the email and say, well, what exactly is the question behind your question? And I will always ask that question 5 times, why?
Yeah.
And then you come to the real question. And mostly the real question will be, well, I feel I need to change my my business proposition, my business model, because the world is changing around me, and what am I going to do? And then we take it from there. And whether it's France the answer, or taking their production out of China to nearer in Europe, or become part of a research program, or go to France and contact Alice, that's the second that's the second part of the answer.
Yeah, thank you very much for that Rens. And maybe one more question, because the audience, they're all consumers as well. So if we want to help the circular textile to take a next step, what would be your recommendation to all the people listening to this webinar? Would it be to just recycle the clothes, put them in the bags and in the recycle bins, or what's the thing that we can do to help Dutch Circular Textile Valley reach their goals?
Well, then you come to your definition of circularity, and then we also say, well, first of all, choose well, but maybe you should repair your clothes, or send them to someone who can give them a longer life, or resell them somewhere. I mean, that is a form of circularity too. It's not only recycling. Yeah. Recycling will cost a lot of money, a lot of techniques, a whole new industry has to be developed there, and I feel we can't wait for that. So there are many steps before clothing has actually been recycled.
Yeah. Avoid
it's about consciousness, what you are wearing, and consciousness about the what you are using.
Yeah, so the whole lifetime cycle of the products need to be lengthened, and avoid the textile waste. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for that, Rens. Just moving to Mieke also. Mieke, also thanks a lot for your presentation. Of course, some of the elements for the Dutch people, of course, we saw some nice examples. But I would also like to ask you, what are the kind of opportunities that you see vice versa? You've seen the presentation of Alice and the reports. What do you think would be the best way to take it a step further, Mieke?
Okay, to take it a step further, I think collaboration is like key. For example, yesterday I was listening to a webinar also from Fashion to Good about the COVID-19 impact on the fashion industry. And there was one company, it's called Lizzie, is actually a French company that has the business model to test rental models for fashion companies. So I think this is, for example, an example that you don't have to think like, okay, I'm a fashion company and I produce clothes or something else, but you can also facilitate others in becoming circular. So I think you should really check out the company called Lizzie, which is a great example of collaboration and moving up and scaling up as well.
Yeah, so that's actually also what Rens was mentioning. It's all about new business models to achieve this circular economy goals. We're talking about the rental part. Are there any other elements that you would like to highlight? What are other kind of business models that we can think of?
Well, I think one important thing is that circular business models also allows us to benefit from digitalization. So if you, for example, think about the rental model, you can also collect the data on the wear and tears, on how the customer is using the garment. So I think you can apply this data at the beginning of the supply chain, at the design phase. So this is one example of a additional benefit from, for example, the rental model.
Yeah, so also combine technologies to support the circular goals.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks. Let's also move a bit, because we're heading out of time, I see, also to Nico. Nico, thanks for this great introduction, and also, well, as co-initiator of this webinar. From people listening, there are a lot of regions. We talked about regions. You have business support offices in Lyon, in Nantes. How do they take a next step if they want support of the Netherlands Embassy in Paris? What's the entry point? Can you elaborate a bit on that? I don't think Nico is still part of the session, maybe.
Sorry, yes, no, I was muted.
Yeah, there you are. You were muted. Right.
I was listening so carefully to you that I forgot to unmute myself. No, thank you very much for raising the question, because there are still a lot of our target groups, research organizations, companies, business, startups, scale-ups, tech developers who do not know what services we can provide and how you get to the people who can help. I think the easiest thing is that we provide all the participants to this webinar with our contact details, so I can give you names, email addresses, so that anybody can contact us. So I think that would be the easiest thing. And maybe to briefly summarize what we can do, I always call it the AAA, or the AAA+1, and I'm not talking about a financial rating scheme, but A like in access. What we do is access to information. That is the first thing. The information we can provide to everybody gives the opportunities for collaboration. We've heard it several times during this webinar. The collaboration which can lead into new business. So I think the message from our side also is: alone you might go far, together we go further.
Yeah.
And I think that was also a little bit the message from Rens. So we draft sector reports like the fashion tech report that Alice presented. The second A is from access is access to networks. We can provide networks for the French partners to the Dutch, from the Dutch to the French, and also stimulate both to collaborate in European projects. And then we have very much an insight in as well, together with our colleagues from RVO. The third A of access is access to finance. Together with our colleagues from our RVO, we have a business development coach who is also participating to this webinar, I know, who can help out as well in getting connected to the right financing schemes, in knowing exactly what the needs are. So that's the AAA: access to information, access to networks, and access to finance. And then the +1 is facilitating that partnerships are being created in organizing seminars, webinars, or in participating webinars just like this one. The conference I was talking about, the Erasmus Descartes conference on the 20th of November, the innovation mission that I was mentioning, but also other activities also in our Atelier Néerlandais and our Netherlands business support offices in the regions. So I think the best thing now is that I share the contact details with you, and that you can spread them to the participants and at large.
Great, thanks. We'll definitely do. So that's also an answer to what would be my next question. How you mentioned in your speech that it's not ecology or economy, but it's combined. So that's actually the way.
Hand in hand.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand. And maybe for our audience, for the French listeners, how do they, can they also approach the embassy if they want to go to the Netherlands, or what would be your comment on that? What would...
Exactly, that's also what we did, what we're doing. So we work both ways because partnerships is working in both directions. So that what we've been doing also for this the reports that Alice mentioned. We presented this report in Utrecht last year. It was in December. I think several of the participants to this webinar participated as well at that event. And we had representatives from Euro Materials. We had a representative from Textile that Alice mentioned from Lyon, other participants from Lille. And we also take French partners, our contacts to the Netherlands, for instance, with the Dutch Design Week or in other events, because you have to see the people, be it whether it's in France or in the Netherlands. You have to be in the ecosystem, you have to meet the people and to see them in their own environment. So we work both directions, and that's what works best.
Great to hear. So if there are any French listeners that they have a great innovation that they want to see if they can collaborate with any Dutch companies, they can also go to the Dutch embassy. So thank you very much, Nico, for that part. Well, maybe let's see, and I would like to ask my colleague Elena if there are any questions that for the panel that we can discuss. Elena, can you break in, please?
Yeah, hi, Ruben. Yes, there was some questions. There was some discussions in the chat, but not very active. Probably our presenters were very informative and to the point. There was a couple of comments and actually a question to the panel from Peter Coppert about the second-hand sales. So has the doubling of second-hand sales proven to lead to a reduce of new clothes, or just more items in the closet and affordable choices for consumers? Yeah, so that's the question to the whole panel.
So, Rens, I guess it's your colleague, so you shouldn't be the one maybe to answer the question, but maybe you can
he should ask me directly. I don't know. Second-hand clothes has really taken quite a position in the market, but again and again we feel when we try to see what's really happening in markets, whether that's in the number, the volumes of clothes, the values of clothes, or the tons that are being recycled, we don't have the right figures. So we need a lot of market research there too. Again, we were discussing with Peter figures this morning. One investigation says 80 million, I don't know what, and the other says 135 million, and they study the same thing. So I think the whole textiles and apparel market is in the blind. What's really going on when it comes to circularity and reuse.
Ruben, allow me to save my dear colleague Rens from puzzling on this little bit nasty question. But actually, it's a serious question because Alice said that the second-hand sales are doubled. Of course, there are growing figures, and I think even in this Corona situation, second-hand might grow even more. But we really have to consider: is this just leading to more items and affordable items in our closets? Or does it really replace the sales of new clothes, so the use of new virgin raw materials, which basically is one of the objectives of a circular economy?
Yeah, thanks for elaborating a bit on that, Peter, because I think you're one of the specialists, of course. And I think also that's maybe what Alice was mentioning, that that's why we need collaboration. We need international collaboration because it's something also in consumer behavior, and not from the production or industry or design part you can change the whole world. So we have to work on that together with public-private partners, with the European Union, but even beyond that, I guess. So I think that might be a good, well, let's say, some closing remarks on the panel discussion, that we do need the international collaboration on different levels. We see developments in regions, but you need also the collaboration between countries and also within the European Union. There are programs, supporting this collaboration. We've got the Green Deal that was recently signed. So I think that would be a good way to conclude our panel discussion. To all the panelists, thank you very much for your presentation and your openness and sharing your thoughts with us. Very clear, not always sound-wise, but very much so in what you bring to the table. So thanks a lot for that. And I would like to give the floor back to Freek to do some of the closing remarks. So thank you very much all.
Thank you, Ruben, and thank you, panel. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Rens. Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Mika, for all your insights. For me, textile is the new plastics, and that's not really a compliment. That's actually a huge challenge, but also a huge opportunity for all of you around this webinar. We hope that we can give this online event a follow-up. And of course, we're referring to the November 20 event in Lille, the Erasmus Descartes Sustainable Fashion event, but maybe before, because if among you, there are people who are really saying, hey, we should pick this up, and we see coalitions, we've been inspired, we have ideas, let's let it known to us, and we can maybe have a smaller subgroup dedicated, working together towards November 20. From us, within 1 week, you will see something like the wrap-up of this event with the presentations. They have already been shared to the chat. Unanswered questions, we'll try to answer them as well. Please indicate us your desire for a follow-up. Indicate your background, your interests, and how you would like to be involved. If you want more background information on France, please go to the links, our France page with more facts and figures, useful circular economy, context, links, info, parameters. First, it has been a pleasure hosting this webinar. Maybe to conclude, I want to give the final floor to the embassy for the closing word. Nico?
Thank you very much. I agree. It was a very, very interesting webinar. We all attend a lot of webinars, and this one lasted a little bit longer than planned, but it was because we had so much to exchange, and I think that's the final words. Let's keep on doing that. The call for action and the call for collaboration was clear in this webinar, and I think there are the different support structures and the experts available to get connected in taking the next steps. And we from the embassy are very much available with our network in taking these steps together with you. Thank you very much for the great initiative.
Thank you all. Then this means the end of this webinar. Have a safe trip back home, but you're already home. See you soon virtually. Stay safe. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Au revoir.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.